Welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Willard, and I'm sitting here with Pastor Mike Rigglesworth and Bradley, the man with no last names, with us as well. Bradley, you just gave us a thumbs up. Why does it look like your thumbs were crooked there for a second? Did you break your fingers when you're...
Oh, no. I just was trying to get the little emojis to pop up on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, because like when I do my thumbs, they have like that curve, right? Yours look like...
No, mine have a curve.
Oh, yeah, whatever you did was like...
The only finger that's mangled is my pinky. I can't bend it up all the way.
Fun fact, I have like Nintendo thumb. If you look at this thumb and you look at this one, this one bends back way more. Yeah.
That was Mike pressing the A and B button really hard to try to...
Yeah. My index finger...
The original good Nintendo, not... I mean...
Yeah, NES, before Super NES. And one time I played for so long that my index finger actually like got stuck in the upright position. Like I couldn't bend it. Yeah, it was a good time.
Those were the good old days. Now it's not. Sorry, that's just me being old and speaking back to the good old Mario and all that stuff.
You speak truth.
Yes.
GameCube is the best Nintendo.
GameCube?
GameCube.
I wouldn't say it's the best, but I like GameCube. I think it deserves its place.
GameCube underrated.
It's underrated. I wouldn't call it the best. I'd call it top 5.
Yes, I'll give you that.
Top 3.
Wow.
Maybe.
Top 4. We'll settle. Perfect. But before we jump into the podcast today, we're going to talk about the coffee we are drinking or the drinks we are drinking. I, once again, am being heretical when it comes to this. I already had 2 cups of coffee this morning. And out here in Columbus, it is a hot one. And so I wanted something cold, but I also wanted caffeine. I have a headache. I don't know what's wrong with me today.
Too much caffeine.
We are drinking the purple Alani energy drink, Alani New, called the Cosmic Stardust. It has no fat. It has no sugars. It has no protein. I don't know why I said that like that. Protein. It just has some sodium and lots of caffeine to keep me going. So this is what I'm drinking today instead of coffee. I need to stop drinking coffee in the morning when we record just so I can have some during the episode. But Mike, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Kahlua coffee. It is a K-cup that I have in my office, which I'm recording from right now, along with some hazelnut creamer. It's quite good.
Nice.
It's got a nice sweet taste to it.
Bradley, what do you have?
I have New England Coffee Company, or just New England Coffee it's called, and I have their breakfast blend. But Ryan, I was going to say the Alani energy drinks are very...
You like them?
At Chick-fil-A, which is where I currently work, a bunch of, and since I'm in a college town, there's a bunch of like sponsored, like the Prime Energy, Monster's a big one, Red Bull's a big one. They'll just show up at our doorstep and just give us energy drinks.
Interesting.
Like a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the drug
for all the staff.
The drug dealer, the first sample's free. Is that what's happening?
And Alani, every time Alani comes, people rush to the cooler and grab as many as possible.
Dude, I've had every energy drink you can think of, and I am going to say it, hands down, Alani's, I think, are the best all around. Now, they just put out a new cherry. So my brother-in-law, Ethan...
The cherry's the best flavor.
Have you tried the cherry twist? It's brand new.
Yeah.
Okay. Ethan, because Alani sends him stuff because he does a lot of Lego stuff. He got that flavor like 6 months ago before it even came out, and I tried it. Fantastic. I think it's better than the cherry. It has a mixture of the cherry, but it has some lime in it, and it's fantastic.
The orange one is a close runner-up.
Orange one's really good. The what the heck is it called? I forgot what it's called. So, I want to say Sun Kiss, but that's
there's a mimosa one.
Mimosa one. There's some like pink one, which is pretty decent. But
they're all very good. I highly recommend.
They're all very good. But instead of just talking about drinks the entire time, which we probably could do, Mike, we're going to toss it over to you to discuss the episode that we have for our listeners today.
Right. Well, before I even get into that, I'll just say that I have been using coffee as my energy drink since I was like 22. I don't think I've had a Red Bull since then. So not to be judgy. That's not my goal, but I don't know. Coffee's my energy drink of choice. So
throw Red Bull away. I think it's like weird liquefied sweet tarts. That's how I.
That's not wrong.
You're pretty close.
I think that's pretty spot on. I liked it when I was, late teens, early 20s. But let's get into what we're going to be discussing a little bit today. So, as of this recording, it is Friday, July 19th, and we are 6 days out from a rather significant event in our country's history. There was an assassination attempt on former President Trump's life on Saturday at a rally in Pennsylvania. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time processing that, talking about that. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about some of the reactions that we've observed from people over this last week on this particular issue. But before we even get into that, I want to ask you guys, all right, where were you when you first found out about the assassination attempt of Trump? Start with you, Bradley.
Oh, okay. So my sister had just gotten married. And so I was at her wedding reception, casually eating dinner, having a good time, talking to the grandparents, that type of thing. And my parents' table was like right behind mine, and the pastor was sitting at their table, and he got a notification on his phone. He's like, "Oh, well, Trump was just shot." And so like the whole like party kind of like erupted, and everybody was like on their phones all of a sudden, and it was very strange. And then like nobody knew if he was like dead or not right away, because it was just like he was just shot. And then like once people found out that it was like he was okay, it was kind of back to business as usual, but like it was still kind of like a shake up.
For sure. How about you, Ryan?
I was at my parents' 40th anniversary party. And I do what I typically do when some big news hits. I go, oh, I'll look at it in the morning because 5 minutes after, no one's going to have any information on it. And people are just going to cause a big stir off of knowing basically one sentence about what's happening. So I just went on with the night and started watching the news the following morning to find some more details. But the first question was like, dead? No. Okay, good. Let's look this up later on once I
Yeah.
can.
Go back to celebrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's funny. So this past weekend was the weekend for family gatherings. So when this all happened, my wife and my family and I, we were coming back from a family reunion on my mom's side. We get together every year with the extended family and like a local park in our area. And we were getting our kids put to bed, and I'm coming out of the hallway, coming out of my son's room, and I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see these pictures of Trump with blood on his face, surrounded by Secret Service people with his fist in the air. And my first thought was, is this like something AI generated? Like, what is this?
Right.
That was my first thought, because it couldn't be what I initially thought it was. Because we see a presidential candidate with blood on his face, that usually indicates something really bad happened. So I was looking on YouTube, and there was all these breaking news stories about Trump having been shot when he was at this rally in Pennsylvania. And as soon as I got downstairs, my wife and I, we were watching just some of the news stories that were breaking initially with what little information people had. Like there were news outlets interviewing, people who were there at the rally and all those types of things. But it was only after the fact that we began to get more information on this. And everybody listening here has likely heard perspectives on this, watched news stories on this kind of ad nauseum. So I don't want to add to the cacophony of information. Instead, what I'd like to do with you guys is talk about the conservative evangelical response to this, right? Clearly, this is something that has very much galvanized Trump's base, his supporters. Like the RNC is just like, on fire in a good way right now. He's obviously, announced his VP pick. But what I find concerning, and this is irregardless of where you stand politically, if you're listening, what I find concerning is how the conservative evangelical base, not all of them, but many of them, are choosing to respond to this. And so I want to read to you a post that a friend of mine on Facebook posted. And it's a picture of Trump with blood on his right ear because the bullet grazed his ear, right? And the post reads, in the Bible, applying blood to the right ear on a newly ordained priest symbolizes they are transitioned from private citizen to a public leader representative of God. Okay, and this comes from a man by the name of Tom Zaremski. I have no idea who that is, but that's where the initial post comes from. So here in this post, Trump is being compared to a Levitical priest. So I want you guys to give me your initial thoughts on that post. What do you think? Go ahead. Whoever wants to go first.
Ryan, you can go first if you want.
Yeah, so you said you know this person?
Yes,
Okay.
not this Tom Zaremski person. They posted from his initial post.
So here's what I want to say, and I'm going to put this nicely. I am annoyed with people who consider themselves evangelicals or whatever. I'm going to just say it in general, just whatever compartment you're in general, that you will post things like this, whether you believe it or not, to be clickbait. Because they get this from Leviticus 14, I believe it is.
This says Leviticus 8, 23, and 24.
Okay, yeah, I think there's also it's Leviticus 14, 17. I'm looking at my Bible right now. So I'm assuming it's multiple places because you know how Leviticus goes.
Yeah.
It's not even. It's kind of disgusting that someone would think that there is something Levitical that's happening here, given any of the context in anything that you can read by any of the surrounding verses and context that we find in it, right? So you want to say that this is some priestly type thing. Well, I don't know about you, but just first off the bat, I can read all of Leviticus 14 and tell you the 25 qualifications that need to be filled before this, let alone you don't dip your own blood. You know what I mean? It's just nonsense. I mean, it's just I try to say this as nice without being angry. It's utter garbage. And as Christians, I think it's just garbage that you're trying to get clickbait and people to respond to you. And it goes to my talk I gave at your church, Mike, of how bad we are at truth knowers and how when we purposely do things to deceive things, we are causing people to stumble and breaking up reality of what people understand. There's going to be some people that go, oh no, right? And that speaks to other things that I'm sure we'll get to what people have called Trump because of the wound he has to his head that we'll talk about in Revelation.
Right. And let's just look at these scriptures that this post is referencing. This is Leviticus 8, verse 23. It reads, "And he killed it, and Moses took some of its blood and put it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear and on the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot." Sure. So when Aaron was being set apart as priest, it was on his right ear, his right, the lobe of his right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. So first off, it's on the lobe of the right ear, not the top of the right ear. So that's problematic right there. But there's also blood that is put on the thumb and the big toe on the right foot and right hand. So there's that element. Did the blood spill on Trump's right hand and foot along the way too? If we're just going to apply that logic alone, that qualification alone, but like you said, Ryan, there are myriad of other things that go into being a qualified priest in the Old Testament. But also something important to consider is the fact that as Christians, we are under a new covenant.
Yeah.
Jesus has done away with the priestly sacrificial system. So why are we drawing comparisons to an obsolete system that was only here for a set period of time as a foreshadowing of the coming Christ who has come, who has died and has risen again and has ascended at the right hand of the Father, to President Trump. Like this is just another attempt to make Trump and his presidency, potential presidency, something sacred, which I'm very, very, very reluctant to do. And now I'm not saying you should which way you should vote as a believer, but I am saying that we need to be very, very careful that we are not trying to make something sacred that isn't meant to be sacred at all.
Yeah.
Romans 13 tells us that God appoints authorities. He appoints the authority of the church. He appoints the authority of the family in the home, and parents. And he appoints the authority of government. So those are the three types of authority that I believe that God appoints. But nowhere does Paul say in Romans 13 that the government is considered to be sacred. I don't see that.
No.
Unless I'm missing something, Ryan, you can correct.
And also to you, I mean, like if we understood the new covenant, right? Which to me, my advice to this person who posted that is, for a while, you need to run your post by people who know what they're talking about as a word of wisdom to you. But you read 1 Peter 2, in the new covenant, we're all
priests,
all priesthood as who is. So if it's just mind-boggling to me that anyone who would call themselves an evangelical Christian would actually assume this to be true, let alone post it, unless it's to cause likes and comments and repostings. And then to me, I don't know what's worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So
Yeah, I think one other thing to mention as well is that not all miracles are prophetic.
true, right?
Like sometimes God can just like do a miracle and it doesn't have to like mirror scripture or reflect scripture necessarily, or like any type of like biblical event that's happened. It can just be a miracle. Like God can cure your cancer. God can give you some money when you need it. But like it's not like, just because that happens doesn't mean that you can like reference it in scripture and be like, oh, this is like some type of event. I don't think that there's like coincidence. So I would say that, but like I wouldn't say that like this is in any way prophetic. And the other thing that happens in the book of Leviticus there is that the sacrifice is a ram, first of all. And then Moses anoints Aaron's sons, not Aaron himself. And then on top of that, with Old Testament covenant, is that when you sacrifice, you perform Passover, or you do any type of sacrifice, you have to burn the flesh and then eat it. So in order for it to be consecrated, you have to like eat the flesh. And so that I don't think Trump was like gnawing on his ear or something like that.
I hope not.
Tell people to go back for it. We gotta get that.
Yeah. So I think that ridiculous.
Fire up the grill. Yep.
Right. I think it's ridiculous. And it makes whoever posted it makes you look like an idiot. Like,
yeah, I mean, say it nice. I don't. At some point, people need to step out to other Christians and firmly and say, you need to figure out things before you speak. I don't know how else to.
Well, I mean, just you need to give thought before you post something. Just think about this. Give it a second thought before you just carelessly just put something out there just because you like it.
Sure.
To quote Qui-Gon Jinn in Star Wars, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Exactly.
And so I just think that it's you get those not so much nowadays because Christians have kind of got their act together a bit more. But like in the 2000s, like I guess late 90s even, and then like 2010s ish, there was always this like kind of idea of the Christian mom who like just kind of like Bible thumps you and just like gives you something that doesn't make any sense at all in their argument, and just kind of like lectures you on like the Bible. It's like like in a weird way, like a cringy weird way. And that's
Sure.
exactly what that reminds me of. It like we have worked hard as Christians not to be thought of that way. And for you to like go back and like do something like that just kind of irritates me.
That's actually a really good point, Bradley. I mean, like, do you know how you have it's like the saying, like, you're bringing us back 20 years. Like,
Yeah,
stop
that's
doing that.
exactly what it is.
You're
Yeah.
you're
And
you're hurting the cause.
yeah, and I want to add something to what you said previously, Bradley, that I thought was a really good point, and I want to add to it, where you just because something happens doesn't mean like you have to look and see the identical event in the Bible. It's okay that events in the Bible are past, right? And it doesn't speak to necessarily to all events that God's going to do something in the future. That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Also, we have this weird fundamental assumption that if God protects someone, that means that that person's on God's side.
Right.
Very interesting assumption. It's very possible that God would protect someone who is not redeemed or saved for the purpose of those who are in many different categories. So there's like this weird evangelical assumption that if God protects someone's safety, that means that person's saved because God protected them. And I'm like, where in the world is that a biblical
It's a
reference? It's not.
very
I don't
It's
follow
very
that logic
pagan
at all.
idea.
it's a category error, a huge category error. So all these people are saying like Trump's God's like favorite person right now. I go, how are you getting that? Well, he saved him. I go, that doesn't follow
And
at
yeah,
all.
and we just have to be very, very, very careful that we are not speaking for God in this moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Let God speak for himself. He is more than capable of doing that. So,
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'll just like cards on the table, I guess. I really quite like Trump. And I plan to vote for Trump. He wasn't my candidate that I was like hoping that was going to win the Republican nomination. But like I'm cool that he did, and I'm all for it. But like yeah, like I think that it was a miracle that God saved his life. Just like the way that he tilted his head, like I've seen like 3D renderings of it and like models of like trajectories and stuff like that and like speed calculations. Like the way that he turned his head was at the perfect millisecond. That it like it couldn't have been anything else, in my
Sure.
opinion. However, that's great. But like, I'm not gonna put Trump up somewhere else. You know what like God's still at the top of my cabinet. At the front of my door, not Trump.
mhm,
I'm not here to worship Trump. I'm here to worship God.
right.
And so like, yeah, it's really cool, but like, I'm still gonna be like skeptical of anything else that he says or does that, might not be in the favor of a Christian. Like, I'm not gonna
Sure.
anoint like myself with Trump's like good graces or anything like that. Um, because he's still a man, and it's like that's cool that God saved him. Um, but like I'm I'm fine with moving on,
Yeah,
if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. Like I don't want to move on from
absolutely.
like God doing a miracle, but I don't want to like dwell on what the significance of it is, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
Like
In the
I'm much more the type of person that looks at like policy and like actual events and stuff and like then attributes like the my belief. um but like at the same time, like I'm not a political person, like not that, like I'm not here for politics, I'm here for Christ.
Sure.
So cool, like let's move on type of deal is my reaction,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and one of my one of my chief concerns with this is, I mean, not so much that Trump's going to win the election. It seems like that's all but inevitable after this event. We were talking a little bit about, before we got on to this record this episode. Do we think that, keep in mind this is Biden's Secret Service that is supposed to protect Trump. I do find it interesting that there are women in that Secret Service that are a whole head shorter than Trump. So how are they going to protect him? That's a big question mark. But there's also this added layer of this guy had been at the rally for a good long while before it started. A whole 20 minutes before Trump gets on stage, the Secret Service is aware of this man's presence. right? Before Trump is shot at, people in the crowd are pointing this guy out to the Secret Service, and they do nothing. And the head of the Secret Service, her reasoning for not having anybody stationed on the roof that the shooter was on top of is because the roof is sloped. That is the dumbest response. And no, not a reflection on her intelligence, but the response is that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
No, especially with the sniper that took him out was on a sloped roof. So
Correct.
uh,
So that just makes zero
Yeah,
sense.
I'm not trying to like I said, my focus is more on like Christianity than anything else. So like the conspiracies and stuff like that, like it's really easy to get sucked into them.
Yeah.
sure.
But I will say, like somebody that's like studied the JFK assassination, like there's quite a bit of unanswered questions
Yeah.
and like, things that just don't line up. And like everybody looks at the JFK assassination and they're just like, yeah, something's weird here.
Sure.
Nobody looks at the Lincoln assassination and is like, oh, there's pieces that don't fit because the JFK assassination, like there was like the Lincoln assassination was very cut and dry. It was very like this guy walked in with a gun, shot him in the back of the head.
Jumped out
Where-
on the stage, right? No.
yeah, and so I think that it's important to acknowledge the amount of like questions that are present with this. So one of them would be the fact that he was walking around in the back of the crowd with a rangefinder for about an hour before the shooting started. And the Secret Service saw him doing it. You have the fact that that section of the like venue was left to the local police and not the Secret Service. And the local police told the Secret Service that they don't have enough people to cover that area. So then again, why would you leave it to the local police? The fact that one of the local police officers walked up on the ladder to the rooftop, saw the sniper pointed his gun at him, and then he climbed back down and didn't report anything. His parents called the police. He was in a BlackRock commercial. Multiple people at the rally saw him and were pointing them out to the Secret Service and the police. The Secret Service on the rooftop saw him, like well before they shot at him. It took 4 shots from the sniper before somebody like actually took the guy out. There's so many questions with it, so it's you have to ask something. So I don't want to say like I'm going to sit here and speculate on like conspiracies or anything like that. But for anybody that's like sitting there and like shutting down the idea of conspiracy, like if you're going to question the JFK or like the moon landing or like any of these big conspiracies, like you have to at least give people credit here. You can't just call them all idiots.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is something that I am seeing happening.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and I
There's
think
a data point that's not connecting with all the information that we have.
for sure.
And we don't know what that data point or data points is, especially when you look at filters through
Mhm.
hypotheses. You go something's off. That doesn't pass the sniff test when you use your abductive reasoning. That something very weird is happening.
For sure.
And I don't know what the answer is, but you can't say it doesn't smell funny.
Right. Well, and the reason I bring that up too is for Christians listening to this, I think we have to be comfortable with not knowing the answers to this because we probably won't know the answers to this given the state of politics in our country, and we have to be okay with it. And like I appreciate what you said, Bradley, that we have to be comfortable asking certain questions. We can't dismiss theories around what happened that are out there, but we can't at the same time get too sucked into them. We can't get absorbed by them. We have to move on with our life. And I think it's easy to allow the mystery that comes with those unanswered questions to become this sort of vortex that just sucks us in. And so followers of Jesus, like we have a responsibility that's clear and that transcends politics, and we need to stay focused on that,
Sure.
Irregardless of what happens to a presidential candidate or anybody in a political office. So That's the main reason why I want to bring that up. Like, I have my opinions too. I have my thoughts, but we have to kind of put those aside and focus
Yeah.
on Christ.
And then I think another thing we should think about is I am I would say that it was right for them to take the shooter down, given the fact that he was killing other people just for the protection. But we should also be concerned about what kind of things attributed to someone's hatred so much that they would want to murder someone,
Yeah.
right? And that is because something happened mentally, spiritually. As a believer, I think there's definitely an evil realm help happening around the situation.
Well, Ryan, you alluded to this when you more than alluded to it. You talked about it directly when you came and spoke
Mhm.
at our church a few weeks back, and I kind of piggybacked off of what you talked about the following week. But at some point, we have to look at and ask the question: what were the knowledge sources that this young man was
Yeah,
focusing on?
yeah,
Because even though his social media accounts had nothing political, he was so radical to try to kill a presidential candidate, but yet we could find nothing. They could find no manifesto or anything of the sort, no text messages on his cell phone. They couldn't break into his cell phone somehow. Like that all seems weird to me. Um, but you could take it to the bank that he was radicalized.
oh
There
yeah,
was an ideology that he got pulled into, and you look back at, all right, what was he fixing his attention on? What was he looking to as his source of truth, and that
yeah,
informed what he did.
yeah. Well, exactly, because I mentioned in that Paul in First Corinthians talks about how this demonic battle that's not just of the flesh is being waged intellectually, with our minds and with what we think of. And then I even argued that battle is not just mental, it's also physical, because the physical has a play on the mind. So the whole body is involved with the spiritual aspect of
And,
who we are.
and whether we realize it or not, it's the exact same battle that we are waging every single day.
Yeah,
Christians that are thoughtlessly posting idiotic things. I'm not saying they themselves are idiotic, but the things they're posting are.
yeah.
Um,
That would
we're,
affect how
we're,
people think. Yeah.
that is affecting how people think. That is affecting people's worldview. So I think we do need to reclaim the lost art of critical thinking.
Mhm.
We really do. We need to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And we've neglected that as a church. And I think one of the ways that we will stand out as a light to people who are genuinely looking for truth, genuinely looking for hope, is our ability to think critically and think thoughtfully through tumultuous events like this.
Mhm.
I really believe that. Yeah.
Right. And Ryan, I was going to say too, I like how you mentioned there, that we're not just souls, and we're not just minds, and we're not just bodies, but we are body, soul, and mind.
Mhm.
And as you guys were both talking there, I was thinking about, and I can't remember the Bible verse reference, but I think it's in the New Testament where, I believe it's Paul that says it too, if I'm not mistaken, where your heart is, there you shall also be. It's along those lines. Like who you worship is kind of what you like, where it's going to lead you.
Yeah. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's
That's the one. That's the one.
it's
Thank you.
from Jesus. Yep.
That's from Jesus. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh, that
Jesus
guy?
has
Okay.
Jesus has some good quotes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just thinking about that, and there's, and I'm gonna kind of stray from the topic a little bit, but I promise I have a point. There seems to be this like kind of epidemic where people are more aligned with a community,
Mhm.
and it seems to be their whole identity is found in the community. Um, there's an easy example that we could use is the LGBTQ community. But like we talk about the LGBTQ community so much, and I just kind of want to like switch out of that for a second. But like it almost seems like there's every type of community right now, and that's cool. that there's every type of community because I think community is great. But like you have people that like their identity is found in video games. Their identity is found in social media, LGBTQ. And anything that goes against their identity is almost an attack on their person. Same with like politics. You can do, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, libertarian, any one of those types of things is something that's part of their identity. And so the problem that we're seeing, I think, is this idea of community being who you are personally. There's not a separation between the personal and the community or the collective and the singular. And so people are kind of thinking in this idea of being a collective. And I think that's kind of a dangerous spot to be in because it limits your own personal reason. And so I just think that this person, they might have been radicalized, but I think they might have just found their identity in a group. And because Trump might be polarizing to said group, LGBTQ, abortion, you know, Democrat, liberal, any one of these groups that you can put as your sole identity, the only thing that you can do to justify that is attack because something's attacking you.
Sure.
And we've talked about this with LGBTQ, like it's not like when they say like your speech is hateful, like it's an actual attack on them, they feel. And so I think that one thing that Christians need to do is they need to not be a part of the collectives of the world, but only be a part of the God. Because like if you start to be too much of a Republican, you're going to not follow Christ. And it's same with Democrats, same with anything in the middle there, or any other group that might seem okay. You're putting it above Christ. It's going to negatively affect the kingdom, and it's negatively going to affect the world as well.
Yeah. And like you said, Bradley, community is good. It's wonderful. It's something that is necessary for every single red-blooded human being. It's God-given, but it's any type of communal identity that is found outside of the Imago Dei, the image of God in us, and the fundamental values that flow out of our understanding that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. You get events like this, right?
Yeah.
Because if I can dehumanize somebody like Trump, I can morally justify in my head, no matter how incoherent the logic is, I can morally justify shooting him in the head, right?
Sure.
So yeah, but I think many people are finding their sense of identity in a community that really isn't a community at all. Like they say, like the video game community. Let's take that as an example, Bradley. Like, okay, it's fine if you come together with some friends and play video games. That's totally fine. But if your only sense of identity is like, this is what we do and this is all this is,
right.
I don't know how much is going to come out of that other than, just maybe basic friendship, just some sort of common bond. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we need to have deeper communal bonds that I think are beyond just a superficial thing. So community that is identified by our shared values. And as Americans, we used to have these shared moral values that we're increasingly moving away from. And we're siloed in our communities, I think, to the point where we're not able to even interact with people who believe and think differently. And one of the things that I believe is that, we have a desired outcome for our country. Both Democrats and Republicans have a desired outcome for our country. And there is a fundamental disagreement on how to get there. And there is an unwillingness to actually talk with somebody from the other side. And Dan Trippy, who is one of the guests on our show a few years back, wrote a really good article on this particular event. And he talks quite a bit about like embodying James 1:19, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. And if we're going to change the culture as Christians and point people to a better way forward, it's going to be practicing that, living that out, embodying that in our conversations with people who think differently than us. So
Yeah. And
that's,
then,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's those are good points. Another thing I want to add too, and one of the things that, I mean, we all have to continue to grow in this, is I think there's a distinction that Christians should hold that I often do not see in the outside world. It's we usually see as hate continues to grow and hate continues to grow, the option, and there's sometimes you go, well, I have to stop this person from killing people, right? You just have to do it. But the thing is, I hate this person. They're attacking me, as Bradley said. I hate this person. So what do I do? This hate takes control and ends up producing an effect that devalues the sanctity of life. And as Christians, what I see, or what should be, especially when you read like the Sermon on the Mount, right? That the more and more you hate who the person is or dislike what they're doing and get angry, there is this care that increases for the person because you know who they are and how far away they're moving from the image of what they should be. And the more you grow to dislike the person, there's like this weird effect of you care more for the person, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. That you don't want this. You pray for your enemies because you realize, oh my gosh, what have they done?
Mhm.
Their souls are at stake. That's like their souls are at stake.
Yeah.
And we don't see this in these events. Hate bubbles
Yeah.
up to they must die. There's no value.
Mm-hmm.
To a Christian, like hate bubbles up to I care more for this person because of how much I disregard what they're doing and who they are in this moment. And I don't know if you can find that in anything but like a transcendent, loving being who is able to transcend our sort of spot in the reality that we are and cause us and help cause us to be that kind of person. And so if you're an evangelical and you just hate, I think something has
Mhm.
gone awry.
Yeah.
You disliking the person, it to me ends up should cause you to pray for the person even more.
Mhm. Well, and
Yeah.
it begs,
That's a tough thing to
yeah.
swallow. That
And
is.
this post, if I could circle back to the initial post I presented here, it circles back to the question of discipleship, and it is emblematic of how the church in the West just has not discipled people well,
Sure.
right? So many people are disciples of republicanism, and their identity in Jesus is secondary to their identity as a Trump supporter or a Republican. Like Bradley was talking about that earlier, but it comes back to this idea, and this is something that I think Dallas Willard's talked about in his writing.
Yeah.
John Mark Comer's
I was just
popularized it
thinking
in
of
his latest book,
the conspiracy by Dallas Willard. Yeah.
the Divine Conspiracy. Yeah, and it's this idea that it's not a question of whether or not you are a disciple. You are a disciple. You are an apprentice. You are learning underneath
Yeah.
someone. You are giving yourself to a particular ideology, and the question is, what is that? Who is that? And it's time that Christians learn to be disciples of Jesus, right? That the Christians learn from the teachings of Jesus, who said, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Do good to those who hate you." Right? Even if you hate Biden, right? Even if you sorely dislike him and his policies and what he's doing, Jesus says there is an obligation for you, if you follow him, to pray for him,
Yeah.
to love him,
Yeah.
right? And I I would say Christians, like, you have a sacred obligation to pray for the leaders of your country, irregardless of what their stance is on abortion and LGBTQ policies and all of those types of things.
And we see Jesus on the cross, right? The ultimate hatred effect of his enemies is happening to him. Like, what else could there be? The Jews have got the Romans to crucify him. The Romans are crucifying
Yeah.
him. You
Yep.
don't see Jesus go, let's just smoke these like the Thunder Boys wanted, right? Yeah. You
The
see
Thunder
Jesus
Boys.
look up to his father and goes, please forgive them.
Mhm.
And it's like, are you stinking kidding me? like at that moment, I would be like, can we just like cause this earthquake and just suck up
Yeah.
everyone? But no, we
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
the
Yeah, go
effect
Old
of,
Testament on them, can you? Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah, exactly. But you see this, the more this hatred is poured out, the more of a I mean, to love someone doesn't mean you can't hate who they are, right?
Mhm.
Why do you think he came? Because he didn't like what the position we were in. Like we were his enemies, but he's like, no, I don't want you to be my enemies.
Mhm.
So, and so
Yep.
I just don't see that, and it's becoming worse because of news. And I think Preston Sprinkle said something, and I did. He said something. He's like, if you watch the news and you start to hate people more, he's like, turn the news off.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
healthy for you.
I
Hmm.
I have two things to add real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
While we're here. So one of these, I have one thing that's might be helpful to the Christian, and I have another thing just to add. And the other thing that I was going to add, I kind of just forgot what it was. So let me start off the thing that's helpful to the Christian. Um, so I was going to say I was watching this thing on fasting. And I know that seems kind of like absurd to mention fasting now. But one thing that was being talked about during um the topic of fasting, it was brought up by an Eastern like nun. And she was saying about how um like
Hmm.
one thing that we should do as Christians is make sure that we're not too comfortable. And at first I was like, that's kind of stupid. But then I was like, wait a minute, I shouldn't say that's stupid. That's kind of profound. Um, and one thing
As
that
he's
she
eating a
was mentioning,
burger. This is
one thing that
stupid.
she was mentioning was she had a cookie every day.
Oh,
And then if she
like
didn't
it.
get her cookie, she would get very irritated. She'd get very angry. She'd get very upset, and she'd have like less patience with everybody. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, the cookie has become my treasure."
Mm.
And so, something I'd say for Christians to maybe ponder and think about is making sure that you have Jesus as your priority in your life. And one thing that you can do to make sure is to live without things that you have every day. What could this look like practically? Well, maybe if you look at the news every day, maybe you just say, hey, for like a day or two, I'm just going to not look at the news. And it's
Yeah.
going to suck. It's going to be awful. But if it's awful, it means that you're probably looking at it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and
you
especially
know,
Bradley, that's a good point. If you get angry, it causes a physical structure in your brain and the sort of things your body releases that actually, like, dopamine is addictive in your
yeah,
body. So people like who don't, like, I can name people right now that I'm not going to, that if they don't watch it, it's like something's wrong with them. And I'm like, whoa, what just happened here?
Mhm.
Like that's not a good to be addicted to being angry is not a good position to be in as a Christian.
right. Yeah.
No. Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean it can be positive things too. Like it could be like, oh, like I eat a cookie every day, or I like need my protein shake or my coffee in the morning. Just go without it and like pray that God blesses you through it.
Yeah.
And I remember the other thing that I was going to say as well. Um, so just on the topic of like hating somebody and like going out to kill them, one thing that the Bible does is it gives you a great argument for self-defense, but it doesn't give you a very good argument for offensive behaviors.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, we could take World War II for example, but um, I there's been a lot of talk about like Hitler lately, so I kind of want to bring it back a little bit. I'm a big fan of English history, and so I'll just talk about like the Viking invasion of England. King Alfred, um, King Alfred the Great was a Christian who was like living in this time of conquest. And he tried over and over and over again to be defensive. He tried to pay the Danes away. He tried to get them to be baptized so that they would hopefully, have a connection with God and stop attacking. And then eventually it just came down to he has to self-defense and he has to fight off this invasion. Um, and one of the things is, you know, when you're putting this um you're put in this like position of self-defense, one thing that you have to do is you might have to defend yourself by going on the offensive, but you shouldn't go too far. Um, and that's one thing that like I think is very important with like if you're looking at World War II or anything like that, like there are certain aspects in which we went too far. Maybe not. Maybe you could argue against this, but like, when your point is to defend enough to get them to stop attacking. You're not trying to put them into submission or make them like believe the way that you want them to believe. And this can go with like going out and assassinating your political rival, or it can go with like arguing somebody into the ground about your beliefs. Something that we should do as Christians is like kind of take a step back and not be on the offensive all the time. And this is something that you should do as just a person too. Like, don't always be on the offensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, good thoughts to consider for sure. But this is going to do it for this episode of The Caffeinated Christian. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to our podcast. And as always, we welcome your input and your ideas. You can reach out to us at Facebook or Instagram at The Caffeinated Christian. That is at The Caffeinated Christian. And as always, we appreciate your input. We appreciate you giving us a listening ear. And until next time, have a terrific day.